This lesson we're going to be looking at gradients and some other styling fun. So let's create a brand new JS file for this, and we can call this file styles.js. And then in the index, make sure that we link out to our new JS file so that we can start writing the code. And I'm going to copy the canvas connection so that we're ready to start drawing. And in order to create a gradient, we can create the linear gradient. So we need a start and a stop. So we have a color stops. So we'll set up our colors. Let's put a Z there at the end. So CTX and create linear gradient. And it's expecting some parameters. So it's expecting a parameter of the X and Y, and also the end point for the X and Y. So we'll set 0, 0, and then the endpoint can be 400 and 400. So X 400 and Y 400, so a total width of 400 for the color gradient. So now let's add in some colors into that color gradient. So specifying the colors object, because now this is an object that we can add to it. And we can add color stop. And you can add as many as these as you want. So let's start at 0, and then we'll stop. And we'll just use a hex color. So it's expecting a string value. And we'll do a few more colors. We'll do 0.5. And then we'll complete the position at 1. So that's the final position of the color. And I'll just add the color to the end. So it'll go green, red, blue for the colors. So now we can use this as we were using the colors before, where if we do a CTX fill style, we can specify this as colors, and that will give us the fill of that colors. So then we do a CTX fill rectangle, and we've got the rectangle size, X and Y position, and do a refresh. And that's going to give us, I'm actually going to get rid of the image tag because we don't actually need it anymore. So this is going to give us the gradient that we've specified. And if we go all the way to 400 wide, then it's going to continue with that same gradient. So it's going to make it bigger because we set the original gradient as a width of 400. So in order to get the full gradient, we have to go 500 out. So if I go over the 400 out, then it's going to be showing just as blue. So it's providing that full gradient all the way through. And if we only want part of the gradient, the beginning part of the gradient, we can always make the rectangle size smaller. And you can also apply this to the stroke as well. So the CTX stroke style. And we'll apply the colors to that as well. And let's create a line. And then creating the line. So that will give us a line. And also let's adjust the width of the line so that we can see that a little bit better. I'll move it off of that main square. So this is the line. You can see that the gradient has been applied to it. And we'll set the line width. So set the line width to 10, and so that way we can see the color a little bit better. There's a linear gradient, and there's also the radial gradient. So let's do a second one. And instead of creating the linear gradient, we're going to do the radial gradient. And this is actually going to require additional 2 parameters into it, as it needs the parameters of the two circles that are represented in the middle. So one is going to be the radius of the first circle, and then the second one is going to be the x and y of the second circle. So whatever the radius we want it to be, so let's do 100. And if we want it to be dead center, we can just do a radius of 0. And it's also looking for the x and y center position. And let's also do another one here for x and y center position. And then the final radius of the circle. And this is for the outer circle, the second set of parameters. Also, let's update this to create radial gradient. And I'll just call it colors. And it uses the same format where we add colors and then we have the color stops. So where we want it to stop along the way. So starting at 0 and moving to 0.1. And I'll move this up here and then we'll update these values to be colors too. And I can shrink this down and we'll do a refresh. And also don't forget to add the updates to the color stops. So that way we're getting the radial. And also maybe we need to make some updates to this. So if you adjust the radius to a larger value, and you can also center the radius. You can also make this one smaller again if you need to. So there's a number of ways to work with the radius. And I'll make this shape bigger so that we can see the full radial gradient that's being applied. And that's because the radius for the outer circle for the radius is 200. So it's coming in at the same center point of 300, 300, coming in off of the side of the element that we're applying the gradient to. So in this case, the rectangle. And this is the 300 by 300 coming off of it, with the first circle having a radius of 0. So there's just there in the middle. And then the second one having a radius of 200. So it's going out from there. And then this is where we have the stop points adding in the various colors.